Gao Tu's heart pounded in his chest, not from exhaustion or the physical strain of hiding, but from a terror that never seemed to leave him. He could not stop thinking about Shen Wenlang. The thought that Wenlang might reject the child he carried, the very embodiment of their bond, was unbearable. Gao Tu had lived years hiding his true self, always maintaining the perfect facade of a beta, calm and composed. But now, as an Omega carrying Wenlang's child, everything felt so fragile, so uncertain. Every heartbeat of the child inside him seemed to echo his own fear, reminding him that his worst nightmares could come true if Wenlang refused, if he could not accept them, if he lost everything he had fought for. Even though Wenlang had never known about the pregnancy, Gao Tu imagined the scenario over and over again. He pictured Wenlang's face turning cold, his eyes hardening with disappointment, anger, or worse, indifference. Gao Tu's chest tightened at the thought. The man he had loved silently for over a decade could never understand the depth of his sacrifices, the years of pain, the secret burdens he had carried just to remain near him. Gao Tu had always been devoted, always attentive, always ready to give everything of himself for Wenlang. And now the child, the one piece of hope he had nurtured, protected and risked his life for, might be rejected. The fear gnawed at him constantly. In his apartment, alone and hidden from the world, pressing his hands against his swollen abdomen, the child stirred, and Gao Tu's hands shook as he whispered into the quiet room. "Please, stay strong. Don't leave me. Don't let him turn away from us." His voice was hoarse from sleepless nights and the strain of carrying the pregnancy almost entirely by himself. There were moments when he doubted his own courage, moments when the fear that Wenlang might reject them became almost unbearable, threatening to crush his spirit. Every day, Gao Tu replayed memories of Wenlang's small, fleeting moments that now became sources of torment. The gentle curve of Wenlang's smile, the way his voice had once soothed him, the warmth of his presence even when they were apart, all of these memories now felt bittersweet. He longed for Wenlang in ways that made his chest ache, wishing that they were closer, that he could confide in him, that he could reveal the truth of the pregnancy without fear. But Gao Tu knew the world would not be kind to such revelations. Omegas were still judged, still vulnerable, still at the mercy of the prejudices of those around them. And Wenlang, his beloved Wenlang, had always harbored reservations about Omegas in certain ways, deeply ingrained, unspoken fears that Gao Tu could never ignore. Sleep was a rare and fleeting comfort. Even when he managed to close his eyes, Gao Tu's mind remained active, circling back to the same fears, the same worries. What if Wenlang refused? What if the child was not accepted? What if the love he had carried for so long was not enough to protect them both? The fear was suffocating, like a heavy weight pressing down on his chest, leaving him breathless and trembling. He would wake in cold sweats, clutching at the small blanket that now barely protected him from the harshness of his own thoughts. Every day became a delicate balance between survival and despair. Gao Tu had to manage his weakened body, strained from years of suppressants, with the growing demands of the pregnancy. His energy was limited, each movement painstaking, every breath a reminder of the stakes. But even as his body wavered, his spirit clung to hope. He could not allow himself to give in to despair, could not allow fear to dictate the future of the child growing within him. The life inside him depended entirely on his perseverance, his courage, and his unwavering love. In moments of quiet, Gao Tu would imagine speaking to Wenlang, rehearsing the words he might never say aloud. He envisioned himself trembling, voice cracking, confessing the truth. "Wenlang, there's a child, your child, ours. Please don't turn away from us." And he would imagine Wenlang's face, reading the words, reacting sometimes with surprise, sometimes with confusion, sometimes with the warmth Gao Tu had longed for. But the most painful visions were the ones where Wenlang turned away, where rejection replaced acceptance, and love was replaced with cold distance. Those visions left Gao Tu breathless, his hands trembling, tears streaming down his face as he pressed against his own body, the tiny life inside responding with gentle movements that both reassured and tormented him. Gao Tu's fear was not merely for himself, but for the future of the child. He imagined a world without Wenlang's presence, a world where the child would grow without the love of both parents, where he alone would bear the burden of protecting and providing for them. The thought of this solitary struggle was almost too much to endure. And yet, he could not give up, could not allow despair to win, could not let fear dictate his actions. Each day he woke, each small step he took, each whispered word to the child was an act of defiance against the fear that threatened to consume him. The fear that Wenlang might reject the pregnancy also forced Gao Tu to confront the depth of his own feelings. He realized just how much he loved Wenlang, how completely his life had revolved around him, how inseparable their fates had become. Even in solitude, even in fear, Gao Tu's heart remained steadfast. He could endure pain, exhaustion, and isolation because his love for Wenlang was unwavering. And even if rejection came, he knew he would fight to protect the child, to ensure that this small miracle, the embodiment of love and hope, would survive no matter the cost. Days blended into nights, and the struggle became both physical and emotional. Gao Tu learned to navigate the tiny apartment with careful precision, managing every movement to conserve strength, to endure pain, to survive for the child. His life became a series of careful calculations, meals, rest, minimal exertion, constant vigilance. Every sound in the apartment, every creak of the floorboards, every distant noise from the street reminded him that his world was fragile, that his secret must remain hidden, and that Wenlang's reaction, though unseen, would have the power to change everything. Even as he endured, Gao Tu's longing for Wenlang grew stronger. He missed him more than words could convey. The simple desire to be held, to be comforted, to be reassured, became a constant ache in his heart. And with this longing came the fear that Wenlang might not understand, might not forgive, might not embrace them both. The child inside him became both a source of comfort and a symbol of vulnerability. Every movement, every flutter, reminded him that the stakes were impossibly high, that hope and fear existed in a delicate balance, and that he must endure no matter what. Through it all, Gao Tu maintained a quiet strength. He whispered to the child, told stories, shared dreams, and conveyed a love so deep that it transcended fear itself. He imagined a future where they could live openly, where love could exist without barriers, where Wenlang could finally accept both him and the child. But even as he imagined this, he knew reality might be harsher, that fear and uncertainty were constants he could not escape. And yet, hope remained, a fragile, delicate hope that kept him moving forward, kept him fighting, and kept his heart tethered to Wenlang, even in the darkest moments.